then submit his report to the Attorney General. Mueller has presented no evidence to suggest President Trump colluded with Russia after a nearly 2-year probe. Our next guest says with respect to the president and collusion, Mueller does not have a crime he is investigating. He is investigating in hopes of finding a crime, which is a very different thing. Joining me now is Andy McCarthy, the former chief assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. He worked in that office for 18 years. Andy is now a National Review contributing editor, Fox Business contributor. It's those articles in National Review that I really look forward to and read voraciously every time I get him, Andy. First of all, you know, there are a lot of people who think, our friend Rush Limbaugh has said this on air, that as long as President Trump is president, Mueller will be around to investigate something because he is searching for a crime to get this president out of office. To which you say what?
Well, I think Rush is right that there are no parameters to the investigation and that as long as it goes on, it will be an unlimited hunt for something. But where I disagree with Rush is that to the extent he thinks it'll go on as long as the Trump presidency goes on, I think that what we're seeing is Mueller winding down. I think he's right that the conventional wisdom in Washington that this is about to come down any second is overblown. I think that there are still cards for Mueller to play, but I do think, Dave, that if he were planning to extend this, you would not be seeing people start to get sentenced now. And I've always thought that if he was building to a larger investigation, the way you build a larger investigation is you get the main guy or you get your cooperators to come in and plead guilty to the big crime that you're trying to pin on the big guy. Instead, what he's done is plead everybody guilty to false statements. And you don't want to build a case by showing the jury that all your witnesses are liars.
But that's really exactly what he's doing
about it. Well, that indicates that he doesn't have a big case at the end of the rainbow. That's my point.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that he's working on is obstruction, and you write a terrific piece in National Review that suggests he doesn't exactly understand obstruction as a charge. Can you explain?
Well, I didn't say, I'm not so much saying he doesn't understand it. The article was about a memo that President Trump's nominee to be the next Attorney General, Bill Barr, who was the Attorney General, by the way, in the Bush 41 administration. So he's a very accomplished guy, formerly head of the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel, which are the lawyers in the Justice Department. So he writes a very lawyerly, scholarly memo to Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, saying that if the public reports of Mueller's theory of obstruction are true, then that obstruction theory is not viable under federal law because it's an extravagant extension of it. What it would say is that instead of traditional obstruction, which is things like tampering with witnesses, tampering with evidence, destroying evidence, things that are innately corrupt, evil acts to try to undermine a proceeding, Mueller's theory would apply to any act of the president, even legitimate exercises of his constitutional prerogatives, if a prosecutor decided that they were improperly motivated. And what Barr says, and I think he's correct about this, is that is not a viable extension or expansion of the obstruction statute.
Andy, it just seems like Mueller is stretching so far, stretching the law in so many different directions in order to make a case against this president. It's like his entire reputation hinges now upon making a charge against the president that will stick instead of the blind search for the truth. This is trying to find something to put on the president. He's filed two indictments against groups of Russians that seem to preclude the possibility of complicity by President Trump. He hasn't charged anyone in any case that even hinted that President Trump did anything wrong. I know people are impatient with the investigation. I'm impatient with the investigation. But at the same time, you can only look at the bottom line of what he's done. And what he's done so far is he hasn't
even hinted that President Trump did anything wrong, at least criminally wrong.
By the way, Bill Barr, who again has been nominated to be the next Attorney General by the president, he wrote this piece. It's somehow the media is trying to turn it into an accusatory, some kind of evidence against him as being the next Attorney General, when in fact it was an offer, it was an 18-page memorandum to kind of help the Justice Department through understanding what the Mueller investigation was about. Did you think it was a good exercise?
Yeah, I really did. I thought it was a very good exercise. And if I were on the other side of this argument, I would take comfort in the fact that Barr comes out expressly and says that we all know that a president can be cited for obstruction. He doesn't take the extreme position that the president is above the law or the president can't be guilty of obstruction. And he never comes close to saying that Mueller's investigation is not legitimate. This is strictly an article that is about a very narrow but important legal issue, which is the obstruction theory as we understand it that the Mueller investigation is pursuing one that is viable under federal law and under the canons of construction of statutes that the Justice Department traditionally employs.
Incredible that it's gone on this long, though. And you think it is wrapping up? You think maybe by the end of February we may have the end of the Mueller investigation?
Dave, one thing I would say is that Mueller is not on anybody's time clock but his own.
That's for sure.
And I think he's going to finish when he's good and ready. There's good reason to think he's winding down, but he's also still got a grand jury open. So I wouldn't put a clock on it right now.
Andy McCarthy, great to see you, my friend. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Melissa. The best indication that Mueller is finishing up his investigation of Russia influence is that he is now in the sentencing phase. We saw that with Michael Flynn this week, now postponed until spring after Flynn rejected the judge's request about whether he wanted to withdraw his plea. He continues to cooperate, though. We saw it with Michael Cohen in New York and his offer of continued cooperation, and with Paul Manafort, now accused of lying after his agreement to cooperate. His sentencing set for March 5th in Virginia. But thus far, there's been no evidence released by Mueller to suggest President Trump colluded with Russia. The president remains in the crosshairs, though, of Democrats, convinced he is assembling a team at Justice to impede his investigation. Democrats also criticizing Trump's permanent pick for Attorney General William Barr, who in a recently uncovered memo criticized the special prosecution. But Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein said yesterday it doesn't matter who's running justice, the investigation will proceed. Now, moving on, writing in the Wall Street Journal now, Kim Strassel says the crowning achievement of the 115th Congress is the House Republican investigation of FBI conduct in the investigation. She said, and I quote here, "The Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton's campaign hired Fusion GPS, which retained a British gun for hire to compile a so-called dossier, part of the FBI's decision to launch an unprecedented counterintelligence investigation." She's urging the president now to declassify portions of the House GOP investigation, which she calls one of the greatest dirty tricks of our political times.
Bill Barr will be an outstanding Attorney General when he's confirmed next year. The memo that you may reference to reflects Mr. Barr's personal opinion. He shared his personal opinion with the department. Lots of people offer opinions to the Department of Justice, but they don't influence our own decision-making.
All right, that was a slap on the back and big support from Rod Rosenstein for the guy the president wants to make his next Attorney General, Bill Barr. But there is, according to Barr's critics, a problem with all of this and a certain memo that raises questions whether there's an instant conflict of interest. George Washington University constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley on that. What's the issue right now, Jonathan?
Well, individuals like Senator Schumer have argued that because Barr in this memo questions the basis for the obstruction allegation against President Trump and firing former FBI Director Comey, that he's in some way conflicted because he established in advance that he opposes the investigation. That's simply not true. Schumer goes further and says it shows that he believes the president is above the law. That last statement is remarkably reckless and unfair to Bill Barr. He says in the memo that there are various grounds upon which the president can be charged with a crime. He lays out that he believes that that those types of investigations should go forward. He is primarily addressing a small provision that he believes would have to be used to make out a case involving the Comey firing. And Barr is a lawyer's lawyer. You know, he doesn't get into all of the spin. He's interested in how you make a prosecution case and what it would do to the Justice Department in terms of its previous policies. That's what this memo goes to. And he's saying that this type of theory would stretch this provision to its breaking point.
I'm just wondering if it would be the ultimate irony if he would have to recuse himself on any matters having to do with this.
No, he wouldn't.
That would bedevil, obviously, Jeff Sessions.
Well, first of all, the same ethics people that suggested correctly, in my view, that Jeff Sessions should recuse himself came to the opposite conclusion on this memo. The ethics experts at the Justice Department said that this is not disqualifying for Barr to serve in this position. But it's just facially ridiculous to suggest that. What Barr is raising in great detail is the type of problem that some of us have been talking about for over a year, that people keep on referring to obstruction like it's obvious that a criminal case could be made because you fired James Comey. It's not. Obstruction is a crime that has elements. It has cases of precedent. And what really Barr is addressing in 19 single-spaced, in a 19-page single-spaced letter is that there is a disconnect between that theory and the history and purpose of this provision.
So the configuration of the new Senate will be a 52-48 Senate, ostensibly, with Republicans picking up, right? So as things stand now, is there anything that would get in the way, assuming the president sticks by him, of his getting the votes to be the next Attorney General?
Well, you know, as you know, in this city, it's dangerous to make any predictions, but I would be flabbergasted if Bill Barr did not get through easily. He is the perfect nominee for these times. Agents love him. He's a stabilizing force. And he's not going to be anyone's stooge. He's not going to have spent his entire career in prestigious, celebrated positions to throw it all away. His interest in going to the Justice Department is to try to bring greater stability to that department. He has a really profound connection to the Justice Department.
All right, Jonathan, thank you very much. Jonathan Turley, all right, we'll be watching that closely.
Point out that this has happened to ISIS before. When they were in Iraq during the 2007 surge, we did the exact same thing to them. We pushed them underground. They went underground. They had less fighters than they do now. So they have 20 to 30,000. They had less than that.
It was only like 700 at the time.
It was tiny.
Yeah, it was
they
tiny.
went underground. They regrouped. What happened? We did the same thing, but it was with Obama. Obama pulled the troops out early. That allowed them to rise back up, and then we had ISIS and a caliphate.
See, I think, and I think that I feel differently, and I'd love your opinion on this, Jason, but I feel differently about Afghanistan. Afghanistan is not going to change. You're not going to democratize. They don't want it. They don't understand it, and it's not their culture. Mm-hmm. So that's fine. Went in, we got the bad guys. Keep them contained with the bad guys and keep your eye on them. But we can bring the troops home from Afghanistan. But that's totally different than Syria with Turkey and Iran and Israel. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Afghanistan is very personal for me because I've actually fought there and I've had friends die there. So it hurts me to give it back to the people that will eventually take the country back over the Taliban.
Right, and it's
the problem. But just to agree with you is that strategically it's less important. No, it's been called the place where empires go to die for a reason. And yeah, the people will not change.
Because it's happened every single time.
Every single time.
Every time.
Soviet Union, everyone.
So get out of Afghanistan. I'm totally fine. And I celebrate him saying, okay, you know what? In a strategic way, we're going to call an end to Afghanistan. We're going to bring all our troops home. But leave the 2,000 in Syria. Leave them there,
and
please.
They're not there to. Everyone needs to understand this. They're not there as a large fighting force. They're there literally just to make sure that Turkey or Russia or whoever else does not touch them. That's really the only reason.
It's why when you're playing chess, we're not playing those 2,000 guys. They're not the queen or the king. They're like the bishop or the rook. and you leave it there for a reason, because if you move it, the other side can all of a sudden move around that board in ways that will kill you quickly. That's all they are. They're a rook.
Mark my words, the Kurds they have made an alliance with someone that we really don't want, or they will be dead. And within months to maybe the very couple years, we're going to be having the same conversation about moving a extremely large U.S. force back in, because Iran is now setting up shop on Israel's back door. It'll happen.
And Lindsey Graham kind of said the same thing yesterday. And again, Lindsey Graham's a big Trump ally on certainly recently. There is the reporting, however, is that Trump, and this is Trump. Trump wanted this, right, for a long time. He wanted to pull the troops out. And I think this has happened with other issues as well. Tariffs are another example. He had advisors around him saying this would not be a good thing for the economy. I mean, I think that they've shown to be right so far. But they kept saying no, and eventually got to the point where I said I wanted it. You're not even trying to do what I'm saying. Get out. And that seems what's happened here with Syria potentially. However, the added part of this is reportedly he was on a call with Erdogan from Turkey, and Erdogan said basically, look, why are you? These guys are terrorists. The Kurds are terrorists. You're siding with them over your NATO ally. Why are you doing that? These people are terrorists. They're separatists, and we should be able to go in there and get them. And why are you siding with them instead of us? And he won Trump over with, of course, the baseline of he wanted to pull the troops out anyway. And I don't know. Erdogan does not seem like a positive actor to me, and siding with his analysis of that situation seems like a terrible idea.
And they're not separatists. This is a man-made border that we imposed on the region to keep everybody fighting with each other. I can't say we did, but the British did, to keep everybody at odds with each other. It's why strong men work in the Middle East, because they have to defend their tribe. This is a tribal thing. This is not like the West. This is a tribal thing. And you're going to wipe out that entire tribe. It will be genocide. And then the Christians will be slaughtered yet again. And I'm telling you, this time they will be on the border of Israel. And this is biblical. This is damn near biblical. We are setting up the end of times war. If we're not smart, this is Gog and Magog. This is Russia and Iran working together, trying to get Israel. This is not going to end well. And losing somebody like Mattis is very bad. Very bad. If you support the president, please, Afghanistan.